The night Valerian thought was ordinary shattered at a red light. Across the crosswalk stood the woman he once fled, holding two children who carried his eyes, proof that immortality had not spared him from consequence or love. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're really glad to have you here. Before we get started, take a quick moment to say hello in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. I'd love to see where everyone is tuning in from, what city, state, or country you're joining us from today. Feel free to introduce yourself as well. And if you're watching live or on replay, let us know that too. Go ahead and drop in the chat. And once again, welcome. We're excited to have you here. Valerian had survived wars, plagues, and centuries of forgetting, but nothing had ever prepared him for the quiet violence of a city street at night. The engine of his black truck idled softly as rain misted the windshield, blurring neon signs and traffic lights into bleeding colors. Beside him, Isolde rested comfortably, her fingers tracing idle patterns against the leather seat, humming under her breath as if the world had never once disappointed her. Valerian wished, briefly, that her ease could infect him. He wished the night would stay simple. The crosswalk light turned red. Time slowed, not with the supernatural stretch he was used to wielding, but with the cruel heaviness of dread. Pedestrians began to move, coats drawn tight, umbrellas blooming like dark flowers. Then he saw her. Marceline stepped off the curb, one child balanced on each hip, her posture bent slightly forward with effort. She looked older than memory, yet achingly familiar, her dark hair pulled back, her face thinner, marked by life rather than age. The street lamp above her flickered, and in that stuttering glow Valerian saw the impossible. The children turned their heads at the same time, curious, synchronized, and his eyes, caught the light. His breath stopped. His unbeating heart felt as if it had cracked. Yura clutched Marceline's coat, thumb tucked into his mouth. Lysander held her scarf, laughing softly at the rain. They were toddlers, no more than 3, solid and alive and devastatingly real. Vampires were not meant to create life. He had believed that lie for centuries. Now it stood in front of him, crossing asphalt, wearing sneakers that lit up with every step. Isolde felt the change before Valerian moved. Her hum died. The air inside the truck tightened, thick with something sharp and unspoken. She turned her head slowly, following his gaze, and then she saw Marceline. "Oh," Isolde said quietly. Valerian did not answer. He could not. His hands were locked around the steering wheel, knuckles pale. Every instinct screamed to flee, to vanish into shadow, to pretend this moment had never happened. But his eyes betrayed him. They drank in every detail. The way Marceline adjusted her grip, the tired grace in her movement, the tenderness etched into her face as she whispered something to the twins. The light changed. The crowd moved on. Marceline reached the far curb and disappeared into the rain. The sound of the engine filled the silence. "You loved her," Isolde said, not accusing, not angry, just certain. "Yes," Valerian whispered. The word felt like a confession and a wound. Isolde studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. She had always known he was broken, had accepted his distance as part of the bargain. But this was different. This was a past that had teeth. "They're yours," she said. He nodded once. He did not trust his voice. Isolde opened the door. "Take me home." Valerian glanced at her, startled. "Isolde, take me home," she repeated gently. "You don't belong with me tonight." He wanted to argue, to explain, but the truth sat between them like a living thing. He drove in silence, the city slipping past, every streetlight a reminder of what he had just lost and found in the same breath. When they reached her building, Isolde leaned in and pressed a kiss to his cheek. "Go," she murmured. "Before you decide you don't deserve this chance." Valerian waited until she disappeared inside before he turned the truck around. Marceline lived on the east side of town, in a neighborhood softened by trees and quiet porches. He followed the faint echo of her presence, a scent he would never forget. He parked across the street and watched as she unlocked her door, juggling keys and children with practiced skill. Light spilled out, warm and human, that he did not go to her. Not yet. Memory rose unbidden. Marceline laughing in an old diner. Marceline furious, eyes blazing, refusing his offer of eternity. I want a life, she had said, not a shadow of yours. He had left that night, convinced absence was mercy, that he had been wrong. The door closed. The house glowed softly. Valerian sat in his truck until dawn threatened the horizon, until birds dared to sing. Something inside him shifted, old and immovable, finally cracking open. For the first time in centuries, Valerian did not feel like a monster. He felt like a man who had something to lose and everything to fight for. Valerian did not return to his estate when dawn threatened. He drove until the city thinned, until warehouses replaced apartments, until the river cut the state in half like a dark vein. He parked beneath an overpass and shut off the engine, letting silence press against him. For centuries, solitude had been his refuge. Tonight it felt like a punishment. Marceline, the name echoed with a cruelty no enemy had ever mastered. He remembered the way she used to say his name, as if it were something precious and fragile. He remembered leaving her bed before sunrise, convincing himself that disappearing was kinder than staying. Vampires told themselves many lies to survive. This one had cost him everything. When the sun finally rose, Valerian retreated underground, sealing himself away until night reclaimed the world. Sleep did not come easily. His dreams were crowded with small hands and familiar eyes, with laughter that burned worse than fire. When evening arrived, he rose changed, driven by a purpose that felt dangerously close to hope. He returned to the neighborhood just after dusk, this time on foot. He dressed plainly, dark jeans, a jacket, nothing that screamed immortal predator. Marceline's house stood quiet, porch light glowing. Across the street, a moving truck idled, a man arguing loudly into his phone, irritation spilling into the night. The front door opened. Marceline stepped out with the twins bundled in coats, each holding a small toy truck. Valerian's chest tightened. Yura stumbled, and Marceline steadied him, murmuring reassurance. Lysander laughed, fearless. That laugh pierced Valerian deeper than any blade. A shadow moved behind them. The man from the truck crossed the street, his voice raised now, anger sharp and careless. I told you I'd be back, he snapped. You don't just leave me waiting. Marceline straightened. Lower your voice, she said calmly. You'll wake the neighbors. The man scoffed, stepping closer. You think you're better than me now? With your charity case life? Valerian's vision sharpened, red creeping at the edges. He forced it back. Violence would only prove every ugly myth about monsters. Still, his body coiled, ready. Yura began to cry. That's enough, Marceline said, pulling the twins behind her. Go home, Grant. Grant laughed, cruel and hollow. Or what? Valerian stepped forward. Or you walk away. Both adults turned. Marceline froze, recognition crashing over her face. Her breath caught. Grant sized Valerian up, sneering. And who the hell are you? A concerned neighbor, Valerian said evenly. One who doesn't enjoy bullies. Grant spat on the ground. Mind your business. Valerian smiled, just enough to show teeth. I am. Something in his eyes made Grant hesitate. After a long moment, he cursed and backed away, retreating toward the truck. This isn't over, he muttered before driving off. Silence fell, broken only by Yura's sniffles. Marceline stared at Valerian, shock giving way to something raw and unreadable. You, she whispered. Marceline, he replied, voice rough. I didn't know. Her jaw tightened. You never wanted to know. The words struck true. Valerian knelt slowly, lowering himself to the twins' level. Hello, he said softly. Lysander tilted his head. You look sad. Valerian swallowed. I was, he admitted, but I think I'm getting better. Yura peered at him through tear-wet lashes. Mommy, Marceline exhaled shakily. It's all right, she said. Go inside. She ushered the twins into the house, then turned back, folding her arms like armor. Why are you here? To apologize, Valerian said, and to ask a question I should have asked long ago. She waited. May I try, he said carefully, to be worthy of knowing them? Marceline laughed bitterly. You don't get to decide that. I know, he said. You do. For a long moment, she studied him, searching for the monster she had once feared and loved. Finally, she opened the door wider. 5 minutes, she said. That's all. Inside, the house smelled of dinner and crayons. The twins watched him with open curiosity. Valerian felt something terrifying bloom in his chest. If you believe men like Grant should never have power over fear and love, stand against him. Speak up. Silence always sides with cruelty. When Valerian left that night, 5 minutes had become an hour. And for the first time since he was turned, he walked away from a home that might one day be his. Valerian returned to his estate before dawn. The old mansion crouched behind iron gates like a beast guarding its hoard. He had bought it decades ago under another name, renovated it slowly, deliberately, filling it with art and empty rooms. Tonight it felt too large, too silent. He walked the halls, fingers brushing walls that had never known children's laughter, and understood how wrong that had been. He thought of Isolde then, of her quiet strength and the way she had stepped aside without bitterness. She had loved him in the way immortals often did, without expectation. Yet even that love deserved honesty. He resolved to see her, not as a refuge, but as a truth. Night came again, and with it resolve. Valerian stopped at a roadside flower stand on impulse. The vendor stared at him strangely as he loaded his truck with daisies, roses, lilies, colors spilling like hope. He did not know which flowers Marceline loved anymore. He chose all of them. When he arrived at Marceline Street, the twins were playing in the yard, supervised by an elderly neighbor. Yura spotted the truck first. "Colors," he shouted. Marceline stepped onto the porch, confusion turning to disbelief as Valerian emerged with his arms full of flowers. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Trying," he said simply. He laid the flowers along the fence, the porch, the steps, transforming the modest yard into something luminous. The twins laughed, running between petals. Lysander pressed a flower into Valerian's hand. "For you." Valerian knelt, overwhelmed. "Thank you," he whispered. Marceline's eyes shone despite herself. "You can't fix centuries with flowers," she said. "I know," he replied, "but I can show you how seriously I intend to try." She hesitated, then nodded toward the porch. "Dinner," she said. "Stay." Inside, conversation was careful, fragile. Valerian spoke of his past without glorifying it, of loneliness, of regret. Marceline listened, arms crossed, defenses slowly lowering as the twins climbed into his lap as if they had always known him. Later, when the children slept, Marceline stood with him on the porch. "Grant won't stop," she said quietly. "Men like him never do." Valerian's jaw tightened. "He won't touch you again." "That's not your decision either," she warned. "No," Valerian agreed. "But protecting my family is." She turned to him sharply. "Family, if you'll allow it," he said. One day, Marceline searched his face, then looked toward the yard glowing faintly with moonlit flowers. "I loved you once," she said. "I never stopped." He reached for her hand, slow, asking permission with every inch. "I love you," he said, "and I cherish you. I always have." Her fingers closed around his. "If you believe love should never be threatened by cruelty, stand against men like Grant. Speak it aloud. Refuse to side with darkness." As Valerian drove away before dawn, he knew victory would not come easily. But for the first time, redemption felt possible. He returned to the estate with a different vision now. Where there had been emptiness, he imagined gardens. Fields of flowers stretching toward the horizon, planted not for beauty alone, but as a promise. An estate not of isolation, but of welcome. A place where Marceline could walk without fear, where Yura and Lysander could run free beneath a sky unshadowed by secrets. Valerian stood on the balcony as dawn approached, swearing an oath older than his curse. He would build something worthy of them. He would confront Grant, not as a monster, but as a man unwilling to allow evil space to grow. Immortality meant nothing if it was not used to protect love. Somewhere across the city, Marceline slept with her children safe beside her. That knowledge steadied him more than blood ever had. And as the sun threatened once more, Valerian smiled, already planning tomorrow. Tomorrow, he would begin clearing land, ordering seeds, shaping soil with his own hands despite never needing to labor. Tomorrow, he would visit Isolde and thank her for her grace. Tomorrow, he would show Marceline that love, real love, did not vanish when things became difficult. For now, he allowed himself a single, fragile hope, that even creatures of night could grow something beautiful, that even broken choices could bloom into forgiveness. The city slept, unaware that a story of redemption had begun. Valerian closed his eyes as the sun rose, heart steady, purpose clear, knowing this was only the beginning. Love waited, patient and fierce, and he would meet it. No matter the cost, he would never walk away again. Not from them, not from himself, never. This time he chose love. Always. Forever. Home. Valerian began preparing for a future he had never allowed himself to imagine. The land lay north of the city, acres of rolling green he had purchased decades earlier and forgotten, content to let it remain untouched. On the third night after seeing Marceline again, he stood at its edge, boots sinking into damp soil, moonlight stretching long shadows across the field. This would be the place. Not a fortress, not a hiding place, a home. He rolled up the sleeves of his dark shirt and knelt, pressing his palm into the earth. The ground was rich, fertile, alive. He smiled faintly. Flowers would thrive here, rows and rows of them, wild and deliberate, color everywhere. He imagined Marceline walking through them, laughter in her voice, the twins racing ahead, their joy uncontained. The thought steadied him more than blood ever could. By the next night, trucks arrived. Workers assumed he was eccentric, another wealthy man with a strange vision, but Valerian paid generously and worked beside them. He cleared land himself, lifted stones, planted stakes, hands dirty, muscles burning in a way that reminded him he could still choose effort over ease. Immortality had made him distant. Love was making him present. Between nights, he visited Marceline. At first, she was cautious. Conversation stayed on the porch. Coffee cooled between them as they spoke of safe things, school districts, the twins' favorite foods, the weather. Valerian listened more than he spoke. When Yura showed him a drawing, Valerian praised it like it belonged in a museum. When Lysander fell asleep against his chest, Valerian did not move for an hour. "I'm not asking for promises," Marceline said one evening, watching him help the twins wash their hands. "They've had enough of those broken." "I'm not offering promises," Valerian replied. "Only consistency." She studied him, measuring the space between words and actions. Slowly, the tension in her shoulders softened. Grant did not disappear. He lingered at the edges, driving past too slowly, parking across the street, watching. One night, he shouted insults from his truck, accusing Marceline of replacing him, of poisoning the twins against him. Valerian did not respond with violence. He stood beside Marceline, tall and silent, an immovable presence. Grant hated that more than fangs. "You think you're better than me?" Grant sneered, hiding behind money and charm. Valerian stepped forward just enough to cast a shadow. "I think fear has ruled you long enough," he said. "It ends here." Grant laughed, but it was thin, uncertain. "This isn't over." Marceline trembled after he left. Valerian wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, careful, respectful. "I won't let him hurt you," he said. She looked up at him, eyes shining with exhaustion and hope. "Then don't disappear." "I won't," Valerian promised softly. "I love you. I cherish you. Every day I'm here will prove it." Days turned into weeks. Valerian brought flowers often, not grand gestures alone, but simple ones. A single bloom tucked behind Marceline's ear. A bouquet left on the kitchen table with a note. "You are beautiful in every light." Once, he arrived in his truck with the bed filled with wildflowers, laughing as the twins climbed in to help hand them out. "You're ridiculous," Marceline said, smiling despite herself. "For you," he replied, bowing slightly. "Always." Isolde watched from a distance, her heart bittersweet but steady. When Valerian visited her, he was honest. She listened, nodded, and kissed his cheek goodbye. "Go be whole," she told him. That was never my place. Grant's behavior escalated. He spread rumors. He threatened court. He tried to paint Marceline as unstable. The stress weighed on her, and one night she broke down, crying into Valerian's chest. They always believe men like him, she whispered. Valerian held her, fury controlled and focused. Not this time. If you believe manipulators like Grant should never control the narrative, say it out loud. Stand against that kind of cruelty. Silent side with men like him. Don't. Valerian hired lawyers, gathered evidence, documented every threat. He did not bend the law. He respected it. And when the hearing came, Grant's mask finally cracked. The judge saw through him. The restraining order was granted. Full custody remained with Marceline. Outside the courthouse, Marceline exhaled, relief shaking her. Valerian took her hands. "You're safe," he said. "All of you are." That night, he took her to the land. The flowers had begun to bloom. Thousands of them, stretching into the distance, a living ocean of color. Marceline covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. The twins ran ahead, laughing, disappearing among petals. "For me?" she asked. "For you," Valerian said. "To remind you, every day, how beautiful you are, inside and out." She turned to him, cupping his face. "I love you," she said, voice sure. He smiled, centuries of loneliness dissolving. "I love you," he answered. "I cherish you. I choose you." Under the moon, surrounded by flowers and laughter, Valerian knew this was not the end. It was the beginning of everything. The estate had begun to breathe with life. By the fourth week, rows of blooms stretched across the fields, colors so vivid they seemed unreal beneath the moonlight. Valerian walked along the stone path, hands in his pockets, listening to the soft rustle of petals and the distant laughter of the twins. Yura had discovered that running through the flower beds made the blooms sway magically, and Lysander insisted on picking tiny bouquets for everyone, including the birds, the trees, and sometimes Valerian himself. Marceline followed behind him, quiet but present, her coat brushing against flowers she had not known she would grow to love. She had learned to trust his silence as much as his words, understanding that centuries of experience gave him patience she had never seen in any man. Valerian had changed. The centuries of detachment, the long nights wandering cities, watching mortals come and go, loving and leaving, had not prepared him for the delight of responsibility, of being wanted, being needed. And yet here, in the soft moonlight, surrounded by blooms and children who looked up to him without fear, he understood that this was what eternity could be for. "I can't believe you did all this," Marceline said softly, her voice nearly lost in the night air. She knelt beside a particularly tall patch of lilies, brushing the petals with care. "All these flowers, it's perfect." Valerian watched her, his heart catching. "Perfect isn't enough for you," he murmured. "But I want you to feel it anyway. I want you to know, every day, that you are cherished." Marceline turned, eyes glistening in the moonlight. "Cherished? You really mean that?" He nodded, stepping closer. "Every day. I choose you every day. I promise I will never walk away again. Not from you. Not from them." He gestured to the twins, who were chasing each other among the tulips, their laughter like music that had been missing from his long life. She exhaled slowly, letting herself lean into him. "I've waited so long to hear that," she admitted. Her fingers brushed his coat, hesitant at first, then with growing certainty. "I almost didn't believe it could happen. Not after everything, not after you left." Valerian's lips curved into the ghost of a smile. "I was wrong," he said simply. "You deserve better than absence. I will make up for every moment I lost." The twins ran back, holding a handful of wildflowers each, thrusting them toward him eagerly. Lysander's grin was wide, mischievous, while Yora's eyes were still shy but filled with curiosity. "Daddy!" Lysander shouted. Valerian froze. The word hung in the air like a fragile promise, and his chest tightened in a way he had never known. He knelt to their level. "Hello, little ones," he said softly. "It's nice to meet you properly." Yura held out his flowers. "For you," he said quietly. Valerian accepted them, placing a gentle kiss on each boy's forehead. "Thank you," he whispered. "I'll treasure them." Marceline's eyes softened further, a mixture of relief and disbelief crossing her face. "They've never seen you like this," she said. "Not even when we first met." "I didn't know how," he admitted, voice low. I've spent centuries running. Tonight, I know. I'm not running anymore." Marceline stepped closer, letting the moonlight illuminate her expression. "You're different," she said. "Not just with me or the twins. You've changed. I can feel it." Valerian reached out, threading his fingers with hers. "I had to," he said. "I had to choose love. And I choose you. Always." The twins ran off again, their squeals echoing across the flower fields. Marceline and Valerian watched them, hands still entwined, realizing that this simple, tender scene was the life they had both secretly yearned for. "I want to do more for you," Valerian continued, voice gentle but firm. "I've been alive for centuries, Marceline, but I've never known purpose like this. You, the twins, this land, it's mine to protect now. All of it. All of you." Marceline's lips curved into a small, hesitant smile. "You've already given me more than I ever thought I'd have." But her expression darkened slightly. "Grant isn't done yet. He won't just disappear. You know that, right?" Valerian's jaw tightened. "I know, and I'll deal with him. I promise, nothing will threaten you again." She studied him, the vulnerability and strength in his gaze, and something shifted in her chest. "I want to believe you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to." Valerian leaned closer, resting his forehead against hers. "You can. You must. I'm not the same man you lost." A soft breeze rustled the flowers, carrying their fragrance across the field. It felt like a promise in itself, an eternal whisper of life, hope, and renewal. Later, when the twins were asleep in the cozy nursery of the estate, Valerian insisting they spend the night under his watch, he and Marceline wandered through the moonlit gardens. He had cleared a small orchard, the trees already heavy with promise. Lanterns hung from branches, their glow soft and welcoming. He stopped beside her, holding her hands in his. "I want this to be our home," he said. "Not just a place, a life, a family, flowers, laughter, nights like this. Everything. I want you to see yourself in this world, not as a survivor of pain, but as the woman I love, cherished in every way." Marceline looked around, her breath catching at the beauty he had created for them. "It's incredible," she whispered. "All of this for us." "For you," Valerian corrected, smiling. "For them. For us. Every moment." Tears pooled in her eyes. I can't believe this is real." "It is," he said, "and it will only get better. Every day, I'll show you. Every single day." They kissed then, slow and tender, a promise sealed beneath lantern light and the fragrance of 1,000 blooms. In that moment, centuries of loss and longing seemed to melt away. He was no longer the solitary creature wandering the shadows. He was a man in love, a father, a protector, a partner. And in the quiet, watching the petals sway in the night breeze, they both knew this was only the beginning. If you believe love should always fight for the ones we cherish, leave a comment below. Don't let cruelty or fear decide what happiness should look like. Only those willing to stand for love can witness its full bloom. As they returned to the estate house, Valerian carried her hand in his. The twins were sleeping soundly, a soft glow from the lanterns in the nursery spilling into the hallway. Marceline leaned against him, finally allowing herself to feel hope fully, and for the first time in years, neither of them feared the night. For Valerian, centuries of wandering had taught him many things, but nothing had taught him the depth of joy he now felt. Joy in protection, in family, in love earned and chosen. Tomorrow, he would wake early and return to the gardens, planting more flowers, creating more beauty for them. But tonight, he simply held Marceline close and let the world fall away. And for the first time in his eternal life, he allowed himself to believe in forever. The dawn broke over the estate like a promise. Light spilled across the flower fields, illuminating petals wet with dew and the soft green of grass stretching into the distance. Valerian stood at the edge of the orchard, hands clasped behind his back, watching Yura and Lysander chase each other through the blossoms, laughter bright and unrestrained. Their joy was infectious, a melody that had begun to fill the chambers of his long, empty heart. Marceline stepped beside him, coat snug against the crisp morning air. "They're so happy," she said softly, her fingers brushing his arm. "It's like they finally feel safe." Valerian turned to her, eyes soft but serious. "They are safe," he said, "and they always will be. I've waited centuries to protect something worth fighting for. And this family is it." She smiled faintly, leaning against him. "You've done more in these few weeks than anyone could in a lifetime. It's overwhelming sometimes." "I'm not finished," he replied. "This is only the beginning. Everything I do, every day, is for you, for all of you." Her gaze lingered on his face, searching, measuring, trusting the promise in his eyes. "I want to believe that," she murmured. "I want to." Valerian's lips brushed the top of her head. "You will," he said. "I will spend the rest of my life proving it. Not just in words, but in every action." The twins ran back to them, panting, cheeks flushed with excitement. Yura held up a flower he had picked, thrusting it toward Marceline. "For you, Mommy." She laughed, kneeling to accept it. Lysander held up his own offering, shyly looking at Valerian. "For you," he said softly. Valerian crouched, taking the tiny bloom in his hand. "Thank you," he whispered. "It's beautiful." Marceline's eyes glimmered as she watched him with the twins. "They love you," she said. "You know that, right?" "I feel it," he admitted. "Every laugh, every smile, it anchors me, makes me want to be better." But even in this idyllic moment, the shadow of Grant lingered. Valerian had expected resistance, confrontation, perhaps even sabotage, but the man's cruelty seemed unending. Threats, rumors, and small acts of intimidation had continued, growing bolder with each passing day. Grant had no idea what he was up against. Valerian's phone vibrated. A message flashed on the screen. "Meet me tonight. Alone. Don't bring anyone else." He showed it to Marceline. "Grant," she said quietly, her face pale. "What does he want?" "Nothing good," Valerian replied, voice low but steady. "He wants fear, intimidation, control." "I can't let you do this alone," she said, gripping his hand. "You don't have to." He shook his head. "I do. This is my fight, my responsibility. You and the boys are not involved in this. You will not see it. Not tonight." Reluctantly, Marceline nodded, though her eyes betrayed worry. "Just be careful," she whispered. Night fell heavy and oppressive. Valerian drove into the city, sleek and silent, the truck gliding through streets slick with rain. He parked beneath a bridge, the shadows swallowing him, the air electric with anticipation. Grant waited, cigarette in hand, his posture arrogant, smug. "You're persistent," Grant said, exhaling smoke. "I like that." Valerian's eyes narrowed. "Persistence isn't enough to intimidate me." Grant laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think I'm afraid of you? That your little act of heroism makes a difference?" Valerian stepped closer. "It already has, because I will not let you touch them. Not Marceline, not the boys, not anyone I care about." Grant's smirk faltered. "You think I care about them? You think I care about anyone but myself?" "You think wrong," Valerian said. "And tonight, you will learn what it means to threaten the wrong family." The confrontation was brief but decisive. Grant lunged, and Valerian moved with supernatural speed, disarming him, sending the man sprawling into the shadows. It was not about violence. It was about dominance, a clear message. Grant's reign over fear ended tonight. "You will leave them alone," Valerian said, voice cold. "Every threat, every lie, every attempt to intimidate ends now." Grant scrambled to his feet, rage contorting his features. "This isn't over," he spat. "It is for now," Valerian replied, watching him disappear into the city, powerless against the immovable will of someone who would fight for love without hesitation. When Valerian returned to the estate, he was greeted by the soft glow of lanterns and the scent of jasmine carried on a gentle breeze. The twins were asleep, their small bodies curled together in peaceful slumber. Marceline waited on the balcony, coat wrapped around her, worry etched into her features. "You're safe," she said quietly, stepping toward him. "I am," he replied, reaching for her hand. "Because you've taught me what I'm fighting for. Because I've chosen love." She leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. "I can't believe how much you've changed me and them," she said. "Everything feels possible now." Valerian pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Everything is possible when you fight for love. And I will fight for you every single day. I love you, Marceline. I cherish you." Tears shone in her eyes. "I love you too, Valerian. I've never stopped." He pulled her closer, letting the silence of the night, the scent of flowers, and the warmth of her presence wash over him. For centuries, he had wandered, searching, longing, empty. Tonight, he understood the weight of what he had gained: family, love, purpose. He vowed to never let it slip through his fingers again. If you believe love should always triumph over cruelty and fear, comment below. Stand against people like Grant, bullies who try to control happiness through intimidation. Only those who refuse to tolerate injustice can witness true love blossom. The night stretched on, filled with quiet moments, whispers of promises, and soft laughter that would one day echo across the fields of flowers. Valerian walked Marceline to the balcony, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. They watched the stars together, the twins breathing steady behind them. "Someday," Valerian said softly, "I want to fill this estate with more than flowers. I want laughter, music, joy, a life that makes every century I've survived worth it." Marceline rested her head against his chest. "And we'll do it together," she whispered. "Yes," he replied, voice certain. "Together. Always." The moonlight fell on the blooming fields, and for the first time in centuries, Valerian felt the depth of a life fully his own, one filled with love, hope, and the certainty that he would never walk away again. The night held them in its embrace, gentle and protective, as if the world itself understood that love, once found, deserved to be guarded fiercely. And Valerian would guard it, with all his strength, all his patience, and all his heart. The estate had begun to feel like home, not just to Valerian, but to everyone who mattered to him. The flower field stretched farther than Marceline had ever imagined, petals swaying gently in the evening breeze, carrying the scent of roses, lilies, and wild jasmine across the estate. Lanterns hung from every tree, glowing softly, and the orchard he had planted was beginning to bloom with the promise of fruit for years to come. It was more than just land. It was a sanctuary. Valerian walked hand in hand with Marceline along the stone path that wound through the estate, the twins racing ahead, their laughter echoing in perfect harmony with the night. He watched them with a mix of awe and tenderness. Every gesture, every smile, every squeal of joy was a reminder that he had a family now, a family worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth loving without restraint. "You've turned this place into something magical," Marceline whispered, her fingers brushing against his. "I don't think I've ever felt so safe, so happy." Valerian smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "I wanted you to have this, all of you. The twins, you everything. I've spent centuries alone, Marceline, wandering cities, hiding from life and love. But now I know what it means to belong. And I belong to you." Her eyes softened, shimmering with emotion. "I've waited so long to hear you say that, to truly mean it." He cupped her face in his hands, thumb brushing her cheek gently. "I mean it, every word. I will spend every night proving it. You and the twins are my heart, my life." The twins returned, holding hands, cheeks flushed from running through the gardens. Lysander held up a bouquet of wildflowers he had picked, presenting it to Valerian with pride. "For you, Daddy." Valerian knelt, taking the flowers, a laugh escaping him despite centuries of restraint. "Thank you, little one," he said softly. "This is perfect." Yura handed Marceline a smaller bunch, shyly hiding behind her legs. "For you, Mommy," he said. Marceline knelt, accepting the flowers and tucking them into her hair. "You're both amazing," she said, eyes brimming with tears. "I never imagined this life." Valerian watched them, heart swelling. "I did," he said quietly. "I imagined it every night I was alone. And now it's real." But even as the night air carried laughter and the fragrance of blossoms, a shadow loomed. Grant had not disappeared. His presence was a constant threat, a reminder that peace was never free. Over the past few weeks, he had attempted small acts of sabotage, anonymous letters, veiled threats, and a particularly brazen attempt to contact the twin school. Each time, Valerian had intervened quietly, his centuries of experience allowing him to remain unseen, untouchable. Tonight, Grant's shadow would return. Valerian had been expecting him. He had prepared, readying the estate with hidden security measures, cameras, and alarms. But this confrontation would be different. Grant had grown bolder, careless. He would not leave without consequences. The first sign was the sound of tires crunching gravel outside the estate gates. Valerian's eyes narrowed. "He's here," he murmured. Marceline stiffened beside him, understanding instantly. Do we need to call the police?" she whispered. "No," Valerian said, voice calm but lethal. "Let me handle this. You and the boys stay inside. Nothing will happen to you." Marceline's lips trembled. "I trust you, but please be careful." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Always." Grant approached, stepping out of his car with the same arrogant swagger. "You think you can hide behind flowers and fancy estates?" he sneered. "This ends tonight." Valerian did not flinch. "No, Grant. It ends when you finally realize you cannot control what doesn't belong to you. My family doesn't belong to you. You have no power here." Grant's eyes narrowed, anger flaring. "You think you can intimidate me? You're weak," Valerian interrupted, voice cold. "Weak enough to hide behind threats and lies. Weak enough to believe cruelty can define love." Marceline, standing behind him, felt her heart swell with admiration and relief. This was the man she loved, the one who would protect them without hesitation. Grant spat on the ground. "I'll come back. This isn't over." Valerian's eyes glinted red, subtle but threatening. "It is for you. Leave and never return. Threaten them again, and you'll wish you hadn't." Grant hesitated, uncertainty flickering in his gaze. The centuries of fear he had inflicted were useless now. He finally turned, walking away into the night, defeated not by violence, but by unwavering resolve. When the gates finally closed, Marceline exhaled, relief washing over her. I can't believe he's gone," she said softly. Valerian turned, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "He will not touch you again. I promise." She stepped closer, her hands finding his. "I love you, Valerian. I never stop. I love you," he whispered back. "And I cherish you. Every day, I will prove it." Later, as the twins slept, Valerian and Marceline sat in the heart of the estate's garden. Lanterns flickered softly, casting shadows across petals glistening with dew. Valerian took a deep breath, holding her hands in his. "I've waited centuries to build something meaningful," he said. "Not just a home, not just flowers, not just protection, a life filled with love. And I finally have it. You, the twins, this estate, it's everything I've wanted." Marceline leaned into him. "It's more than I could have imagined. And yet, I can see more. I can see you planning even more for us." Valerian smiled. "You're right. Tomorrow, I'll order more flowers. Perhaps a new orchard. A place where laughter can echo, where memories are made, and where love is nurtured every single day." She laughed softly. "You're ridiculous." "For you," he said simply, bowing slightly. "Always for you." They kissed under the lantern glow, the world around them silent except for the soft rustle of petals and the occasional chirp of an early bird. The estate felt alive, safe, and full of promise. And Valerian knew this was the life he would fight to protect forever. If you believe love should conquer fear and cruelty, leave a comment below. Only those willing to stand against people like Grant, manipulators, bullies, and those who thrive on intimidation, can witness the full power of devotion. As the night deepened, Valerian held Marceline close, listening to the soft rise and fall of her breath. For centuries, he had searched for meaning. Tonight, he had found it: love, family, and the promise of forever. Morning broke over the estate in a wash of gold and pink light. Dew clung to every petal, every blade of grass, turning the fields into a sparkling ocean. Valerian stood at the edge of the orchard, watching the twins run ahead of Marceline, their laughter echoing like bells across the open air. He breathed in the crisp air, savoring the serenity that had been centuries in the making. The estate was no longer just his. It belonged to them now, to Marceline, to Yura, to Lysander. Every flower planted, every tree nurtured, every lantern hung was a promise of protection, of love, of a life earned and fiercely defended. "Come on, Daddy," Lysander called, waving his stick like a sword. Valerian smiled, dropping to his knees to match their height. "Lead the way, little warrior," he said. Yura followed, eyes bright with excitement, carefully balancing a small wooden shield he had fashioned from scraps. Marceline walked behind them, hands brushing petals as she went, smiling softly. "You've made this place magical," she said. "I feel like I could stay here forever and never get tired of it." "You'll never get tired of it," Valerian replied, picking a small bouquet of daisies and tucking them into her hair. "Because it's ours. Every flower, every tree, every corner of this estate is a part of our story." She touched the blooms gently. "I can see that," she said. "And I can see you too. How much you've changed. How much you've opened your heart." He knelt to brush a hand over her cheek. "I've opened it to you because you're worth it," he said. "You, and them, and this life we're building. I've spent centuries alone, Marceline. But now, I finally understand what it means to love without limits." The twins ran back toward them, carrying small piles of wildflowers they had collected. "For Mommy," Yura shouted, dropping his bouquet at her feet. "And for Daddy," Lysander added, presenting his own little bunch. Valerian accepted the flowers, feeling a surge of warmth he had never known. "Thank you, little ones," he said softly. "I'll treasure these always." Marceline knelt beside him, brushing the petals with care. "Look at them," she said. "They love you, Valerian. They've always felt safe with you, even when I was afraid they might not." Valerian held her gaze. "I'll never let anything threaten them. Never again." But even in the sanctuary of the estate, the shadow of Grant lingered. Valerian had expected him to retreat after the last confrontation, but the man's arrogance and cruelty would not allow it. Letters had arrived, legal threats, veiled warnings, each one meant to intimidate and instill fear. One afternoon, Valerian received a particularly bold note left under the estate gate. "You can't hide from me forever. They'll remember who I am." He showed it to Marceline. She sighed, fear flickering in her eyes. "He's relentless," she murmured. Valerian knelt beside her, holding her hands. "Yes," he said firmly, "but he's no longer a threat. Not to us. I've spent centuries confronting darkness, Marceline. I can handle him, and I will. Always." She pressed her forehead to his chest. "I trust you," she whispered. "I just hate that he's still out there." "I know," he replied softly, "but love is stronger than fear. And you and the boys are my everything. I will never let anyone take that from us." That night, he prepared a small surprise. The estate's orchard had grown significantly, but he wanted something more: a path lined with flowers leading to a hidden gazebo, lanterns hung carefully to glow under the moonlight. When Marceline arrived with the twins, she gasped. "Valerian, this is beautiful," she exclaimed. He took her hand. "I wanted you to see it tonight. A place for us, for quiet moments, for laughter, for dreams. A part of our story just for us." The twins ran ahead, exploring the gazebo, peeking behind lanterns, laughing as petals brushed their cheeks. Valerian watched them, heart swelling. He knelt to brush a hand over Yura's hair. "Do you like it, little one?" Yura nodded, shy but smiling. "Yes, Daddy. It's perfect." Lysander jumped into his arms. "We can play here forever." Marceline approached, wrapping her arms around Valerian. "You've built us a home," she said softly. A real one. Not just flowers or fields, but a life. He kissed her forehead, savoring the moment. And I promise to keep building it. Every day for all of you. The night stretched on, filled with laughter, whispered promises, and the soft rustle of petals. For the first time in centuries, Valerian understood that eternity could be beautiful, that love could be a choice and a shield, and that family could be a home. Not just a word, but a sanctuary. If you believe love should always stand against cruelty and fear, comment below. Only those willing to fight for what matters, against people like Grant, can witness the full bloom of devotion and family. As they returned to the main house, Valerian held Marceline close. The twins were tucked into bed, their breathing soft and even the night peaceful. Valerian whispered to Marceline, "This is only the beginning. I will spend every century, if I must, making sure you and the boys never want for love, safety, or joy." She pressed a hand to his chest. "And will spend every day believing you. Always." Valerian closed his eyes, letting the soft night carry him, carrying them into a future he had never dared to dream. And for the first time, eternity did not feel lonely. Love was their legacy. Dawn broke gently over the estate, the horizon painted in soft pinks and golds. Valerian stood at the edge of the flower fields, breathing in the scent of roses, lilies, and wildflowers mingling with the crisp morning air. The twins ran ahead, their laughter spilling across the estate like sunlight on water. Marceline walked beside him, her hand in his, fingers intertwined in the kind of quiet intimacy that spoke of trust, love, and shared history. This was home, not just land or walls, but a life they had carved together, one built on resilience, hope, and devotion. Valerian watched his family move among the blooms, feeling something he had never known in all his centuries: peace. The events of the past weeks, the threats from Grant, the moments of doubt, they were all behind them now. Valerian had confronted Grant decisively, leaving no room for intimidation or fear. The man's shadow could no longer reach the estate, could no longer touch Marceline or the twins. He had finally learned what Valerian had known centuries ago. Love cannot be threatened, and those who try will always fail against the strength of devotion. Marceline's eyes met his, brimming with emotion. "I never imagined this life could exist," she whispered. I thought we'd always be running, always waiting for something terrible to happen." Valerian brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "We waited long enough," he said softly, "and now we don't have to run anymore. Not from him, not from anything, because all of this is ours." She smiled, leaning into him, her head resting against his chest. "And you've given us everything," she said. "Flowers, laughter, a home. You've given me hope I didn't think I could feel again." Valerian pressed a kiss to her forehead, his lips warm and deliberate. "You gave me more than I could have ever imagined," he said. "You gave me a family, a purpose, and the kind of love I thought I'd lost centuries ago. I promise I will cherish you forever. I will bring flowers when you least expect them, build spaces where the boys can run and laugh, and fill every corner of this home with proof that you are loved endlessly and completely." The twins ran back, Yura holding a handful of daisies and Lysander waving a small bouquet triumphantly. "Daddy, Mommy, look!" Valerian knelt to greet them, enveloping both in his arms. "You two are my world," he said softly, "and I will protect you, guide you, and love you every single day." Marceline wrapped her arms around the three of them. "We're safe now," she whispered. "All of us. Together." "Yes," Valerian said, voice steady, full of conviction. "Together always. And nothing will ever change that." The estate had become more than a home. It was a sanctuary. Valerian had built it not just with flowers or land, but with intention, with love, with patience, and with a promise that every stone and petal bore witness to the life they were creating. He had ordered more blooms, more orchards, and planned gardens that would stretch for acres, each one a tribute to the family he would never abandon. Marceline smiled up at him, eyes glistening in the morning light. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "And it's ours." "It is," he said, "and I will spend every day proving it." That afternoon, Valerian took her on a tour of the new orchard he had designed. A hidden gazebo at the center, lanterns hung from every branch, pathways lined with flowers. "This is our special place," he explained. "A place for quiet moments, for celebrations, for dreams. A place for us." Marceline's eyes softened as she took it all in. "It's perfect," she whispered. "All of this, you've made it for us." "For you," he corrected, smiling. "For them. For all of you. Every choice I make, every action I take is for this family. You are my heart, my home." Yura ran up, tugging at his coat. "Daddy, come play." Lysander followed, waving his arms excitedly. Valerian lifted them both into his arms, spinning them around, laughter echoing across the blooming fields. Marceline watched, a tear slipping down her cheek, overwhelmed by the simple joy that had taken root in their lives. When night fell, lanterns flickered softly, illuminating paths and blooms, casting shadows that danced like gentle guardians. Valerian and Marceline stood together, the twins asleep inside the estate house. He held her close, brushing his lips against her forehead. "I will never walk away from this," he whispered. "Never from you, never from them, never from this life we've built together." She rested her head against his chest. "And I'll never stop believing in us," she said. "I'll never stop loving you." A soft breeze rustled through the petals, carrying the scent of flowers and the quiet promise of eternity. Valerian pressed a hand to her cheek, kissing her slowly, deliberately, as though sealing a vow that would last beyond time itself. "Look at what we've built," he murmured. "A life, a home, a family, everything I ever wanted, all because I chose love, all because I chose you." Marceline smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "And I choose you, Valerian. Every day, always." The night held them in its gentle embrace, the estate alive with the whisper of flowers and the soft echo of joy. The threats of the past were behind them, Grant's shadow banished, and the family's future stretched before them, bright and unbroken. Valerian knew this moment would carry them forward. He had fought, he had loved, he had protected, and now, for the first time, he allowed himself to rest, to live fully, to cherish what centuries of wandering had denied him. They walked hand in hand through the orchard, the moonlight catching petals that glimmered like stars. Lysander and Yura's laughter filled the air in dreams, a promise of days to come. Marceline leaned into him, her warmth and presence anchoring him more firmly than any blood tie ever could. "I love you," he whispered, voice low and certain. "I love you, Marceline. I love them. I love this life we've created, and I will spend every century proving it." "And we love you," she said softly, smiling through tears. "Always." The estate, the family, the love, they were unbreakable. For Valerian, centuries of wandering, centuries of loneliness had led to this single, luminous truth. Love was the ultimate victory. And he had it, finally, fully, completely, in that moonlit sanctuary, surrounded by blooms, laughter, and the soft embrace of the woman and children he cherished. Valerian realized something he had never allowed himself to hope for before. Eternity could be beautiful. Eternity could be full of love, safety, and joy. Eternity could belong to them, and it would. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. It really means a lot that you spent some time here with me today. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, drop a comment, or share it with someone who might enjoy it too. And don't forget to follow/subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. I love hearing from you, so let me know your thoughts, questions, or just say hi in the comments. Thanks again. You're the reason I do this, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.